Welcome back to this week's study. It's called Between Me and You. We're looking at the end of Genesis chapter 31. Today we're specifically in 43 and 44. And I entitled this little section of our study called Covenant Agreement. And this is actually part 2 of the study, so if you want to go back, watch the intro. This is the first main lesson here. And we're looking at how Laban has really no answer to Jacob. Remember, Jacob gave a stern rebuke to Laban. And now Laban finally speaks up. You know, they've been having a little go back and forth. Laban did all this stuff. He accuses Jacob, and then Jacob has this he gets angry, it says, and he has a tirade. He rebukes his, actually he says he berates. So that's not, I mean, there's one thing about rebuking someone, but there's another thing about berating someone. Berating is not a good thing. And so Jacob goes a little bit overboard, I think, on this one. But that's what it says. He berated him. So Laban begins to speak up in this passage, right? Notice that he does not offer a rebuttal, though. He doesn't come back and say, hey, you know what, you're wrong. He doesn't answer any of the points. Like, yeah, you know, Jacob just pointed out how Laban mistreated him over and over again, and Laban doesn't say anything about that. He doesn't answer back to that. So he doesn't argue against Jacob's accusation of cheating or of trickery or anything else like that. He does not argue against Jacob's work ethic either, because remember, Jacob said, I worked hard for you. He doesn't say, no, you didn't. You were a lazy person. He doesn't even answer back to that. He speaks nothing about it because, you know, what can he say? Jacob's right. I mean, he can lie, I guess, but he can't say anything. Remember that God also already told Laban that he's not allowed to speak good or evil. And so his hands are tied. He can't do anything. God has already spoken against Laban. So he doesn't have a choice, really. Now, this does not leave Laban speechless, though. He still speaks. Laban is, we have a record of a lot of Laban's words, probably more than Jacob's words here at the beginning of the story. So it's pretty interesting. Remember that he can speak. God doesn't make him mute, you know, but his words have no power here. They have no strength. Proverbs 16:5 says, everyone who's arrogant in the heart is an abomination to the Lord. Be assured, he will not go unpunished. That's a strong proverb right there. To think about the arrogant heart, the prideful in heart. Those who are prideful are an abomination to the Lord. That gives a whole new meaning of Pride Month, right? God says, if you're prideful, you're an abomination in my sight. So we need to think about that too, especially when we're approaching people who are very prideful in whoever they are, whatever they're doing. We should not condemn them because God's already done that. We need to be merciful and pitiful and show pity towards them, because they're an abomination before the Lord. That's not a good thing. That's a horrendous thing. It's a scary thing. And so we need to watch out for people that are in that. And that's where Laban's at. He's really arrogant in what he's doing. I mean, it's very clear in the words that he's saying. He doesn't even address the fact that he did do all those things to Jacob. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't say, yeah, I'm sorry I did that to you for the last 20 years, and I tricked you, and I made you marry 2 women so that you could have the one that you wanted. You know, it's just horrible things that he did, but he never, here in the text, never apologizes. So what is his tactic? What is Laban's tactic next? Well, Laban claims Jacob's family for his own. Laban turns and says, the daughters are my daughters, the children are my children, and the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see is mine. Remember what Leah and Rachel were complaining about. They said that they were treated as if they were foreigners in the household. Laban comes out and says, these are my daughters. Their children are my children. Now, there are several ways to read this statement. And since we don't have the motivation of Laban, we need to tread carefully here in what we assume, because this is his words, and we need to, we don't know what the tone of this is. what he's saying, because he is being called out for his sin, and now is he owning up to his error? He should have been treating his family well all along, but now it's a little too late, now that they've already left. And people will often fake affection when it's to their advantage. Is this what Laban's doing? We're not told here. So we need to be careful when we read this passage, when we're thinking about what is going on here. And I was reminded this week, too, of being careful of speculations. We do need to be careful of when we speculate about things. So when we're reading this, and we're just reading along, what is he saying here? When we're trying to figure out what the Bible is saying, what it means, we have to be careful not to go off into some crazy speculations, but to deduce. We need to deduce, to exegete, pull things out of Scripture. Look at what it says and then draw the meaning out from that. And not to read things back into it because we like that. So it's good to look at different sides, to go back and look at different things, to see, what different sides there are. We need to examine those. And so that's when I preach on Sunday mornings, I like to give some of those other sides, because the Bible doesn't specifically say, but we are trying to exegete, to pull the meaning out. And so throughout the 2,000 years of church history, people have come to various different conclusions on this. And it behooves us to look at all those conclusions. And especially with Genesis, you're going back further. More than just church history, you have the readings and the teachings of the rabbis. You have the early teachings concerning these passages, especially Genesis, since it's such an old book. And so we need to be not, as C.S. Lewis said, we don't want to be chronological snobs. We don't assume because, we're further along that we know everything. So we need to look at those kind of things and be mindful of it. Not to read into things that aren't there, but to pull things out. And so that's what we need to do here when we're examining why Laban is now saying this. He's saying these are his daughters, but they're really Jacob's children. These are his wives. Yes, they're legally Jacob's now because he married them, right? And Laban gave them away, but he's still saying, these are my daughters. And so he's claiming them again, which is not wrong, but why is he saying this? And then he says Jacob's children are his children. Then you get kind of more of a sense that he's putting his stamp on those things. And these belong to him. These are his possessions, and they belong to him, which is a very worldly view. In reality, none of what Laban was seeing was his. Jacob had worked hard to earn Leah and Rachel's hand in marriage. He had worked hard for the flock, which were his payment for keeping Laban's sheep. Worldly people like Laban will often claim for themselves things that they have no right to claim. Now Laban wants a covenant here, and that's the next part. Laban demands a covenant. He says next, Laban proposes that Jacob and he enter into this covenant agreement. Notice that Jacob follows Proverbs 26:4. Answer not a fool according to his folly, lest you be like him yourself. Jacob does not enter into a war of words, nor does he correct him. He doesn't answer. They're really kind of speaking past each other because neither of them are speaking to what the other person has spoken. So Jacob says his piece and allows Laban to continue to speak, though Jacob has a good case to protest. And Jacob does not insist that Laban submit to him and doesn't force him to apologize for, rifling through all this stuff. And Jacob shows some serious patience with his uncle. That is the fruit of the Spirit, right? That patience is the fruit of the Spirit. So Jacob has the right to protest. Jacob has the right to complain, but he doesn't. He refrains from that. And that is a good lesson for us to learn too, is that if someone is accusing you, you don't need to answer back. God will be the avenger, and God will release it. And if there's a reason, if there's a need to correct, then correct gently, patiently. Teach the lessons of God. Make disciples, what we're supposed to do, not burn people with accusations. And so there's that idea of lifting people up, strengthening people. Hey, you're doing a good job. You're doing great. I love what you're doing. I just, look at this little issue here. Maybe, how can I help you with that? Instead of accusing people, say you're wrong in doing this, say, how can I help you grow in this? How can I help you, develop in this area? I see this, maybe it's something that someone's lacking, or maybe someone's doing something that you don't agree with. Encourage them. Don't just come out and say, this is wrong. Come alongside them and say, hey, how can I help you? How can I build you up in this? I notice, you might be drifting in this. How can I come alongside you? And maybe I can share some insights that I have with you. And maybe you might want to consider doing this. Be gentle. That's how God told us to address other people. Not to be, you can't do this. You got to come alongside and instruct people. Now, if they keep refusing, then you can begin to amp up the thing. But if you're just coming to the person the first time, it's not a heavy hand that you should bring. If you're trying to stop them from falling off a cliff, yes, you might be more aggressive. But if it's something that it just needs some, study, some work on, then it doesn't need to be heavy-handed. So keep those thoughts in your mind. Follow Jacob's patience. He's a very patient man, which before he wasn't. So that's obviously a work of the Holy Spirit in his life there. And come back next time and we'll look at the next section of verses 45 through 54. And that's what we'll look at tomorrow.